Absolutely. I did participate in corruption, which is the most Arab thing about it.
And you know what? You had to go to America to do it.
Yeah. My parents are proud of me.
Living glam, living rock, living with Jonathan and Katy.
Hi. Welcome to Living with Jonathan and JD.
JD. Welcome to Living with two sluts who are sick.
We are sick. We're sitting across the room from each other, even though we probably have the same viral infection. It's disgusting because we don't ever like to admit weakness. Weakness is gross.
That's true. And mortality is disgusting.
Absolutely.
So if you yourself...
Like when the Black Plague hit...
remember?
When it came into northern Spain at the time, oh my God.
That was my favorite summer.
That was great. We were over in Santander and in Bilbao.
But some people did survive. And I guess those are like immortals.
Those were the people who we gave the virgin blood to. But don't worry, we got 27-year-old male virgin blood. And we made sure that they were like really filthy people. Like Roman soldiers. Roman soldiers were the colonizers, so they were the terrible ones.
When a man was knighted, was he given a title?
Why are you asking me?
Because you would remember I was drunk for all of the 1500s.
You were drunk for all of Europe during the Middle Ages. Yeah.
Honey, you know that.
Yeah.
Those were my ale days.
Yeah, in order to get you clean, that's why we had to come to the Americas.
It was a new world. You're like, honey, new world, new life. We're going to start over for you.
Yes.
There's people here you haven't slept with. There's kings here you haven't slept with. But no, I was thinking, like, did they call you like Knight Jonathan? They don't. Oh, no, it's Sir. What am I talking about?
Yeah.
And then
like Sir Ian McKellen, he's an actual knight.
Yeah.
So there are knights walking around, but I think they're mostly award-winning actors now.
It really is.
Yeah.
That and you told me that my liege is a duke.
No.
Or lord.
I heard on this episode of Craig Ferguson when he still had his show, when that awful, awful movie, The Other Boleyn Girl, was coming out, starring Natalie Portman and Scarlett Johansson, two currently problematic white actresses.
I saw that movie and all I remember is that it seemed like the costume director stopped at their hair. Like their hair was not done. It was just long and straight. And I was like, that doesn't feel right to me.
Right. Also, it is very funny that they're both in a movie together to me because, of course, Scarlett Johansson has since become famous for being like, I'm Asian.
Yeah.
And if I want to be
trans.
black and if I want to be a tree, I can. And then Natalie Portman recently, did you see why everyone wanted to cancel her recently?
No, it wasn't.
She wore to the Oscars this like beautiful like Dior cape that had like the women directors of this past film season like embroidered into it. And of course, famously, Greta Gerwig was snubbed at the Oscars, and there's of course like a big like discrepancy in like male versus female stuff, but people were like, that's all great for you for wearing that cape. We agree with that. Why hasn't your production company hired a single female director?
Ooh.
And everyone was like, oh. And then there's actually, her production company hired one female director. Ooh. Guess who it was?
Who?
Natalie Portman. So people were just like, girl, this is the type of activism and liberalism that no one likes because it's like fake.
If that were us at the Oscars, we would have matching capes, but they would be embroidered with the names of our enemies.
Absolutely. That's what she should have done.
And it would just be like iconic names that they don't need a last name. You know what I mean?
A lot of them they didn't.
It would just be like
the Richies.
The Richies. They know which ones they are.
Yeah.
I feel like we are so delusional.
We are sick right now.
I don't think we've ever opened the door to each other looking more busted.
I know. I look like one of those people who goes to Alaska to work in the cannery for 7 months. You know what I mean? Where I'm just like, hey, it's me, Bradley. I don't know why my name would be that and why I'm Southern. And then you looked like, do you remember Bram Stoker's Dracula, directed by Francis Ford Coppola?
You sent me that horrible image before. It's like the whitest woman with like blood in her eyes.
Yeah, well, you like look like her while she's turning into a vampire.
Yeah.
So she was still human. So she would like answer the door, and she would look like she's very pretty, but she was sick, right?
Yeah.
So she'd answer the door, and they'd be like, Daisy, and she'd be like, hello, Colonel, or whatever, Colonel. Hello, Colonel. I said Colonel. Hello, Colonel. Come in. and leave your big knife on the table. Like you're just like coughing up stuff.
Today on the show, we have Ramsey Badawi.
Ramsey Badawi.
Delightful,
very funny comedian.
friend of the show, member of the Coven.
Ramsey is Palestinian. He grew up in Orange County, but we want to talk to him about how he went from being someone whose family's from Palestine and growing up in Orange County to then suddenly becoming like Republican, kind of leaving behind his Arabness and Palestinianness and entering into like a weird like
Becoming a white man.
like him trying to become a white man for a summer. And my summer as a white, and then finding his way from that polar vortex into the next one, which is like fairly centrist liberal comedian who, you know, it's honestly like his whole story of becoming a man, because he did say something very interesting during the podcast of like he saw things in like polar viewpoints a lot, you know,
Extreme viewpoints. Yeah.
and then now he sees things in a much more nuanced way, and it's very interesting because, you know, we don't hear a lot from people who are Palestinian, especially artists, you know.
I had
Especially
no
gay
idea.
artists like Ramsey. No,
I had no
Ramsey's
idea what
not
Palestine
gay,
even
but-
was until our podcast.
Really?
No, I'm kidding.
You've known Ramsey for 12 years.
For 15 years.
You're like, how do
one
you
of my
pronounce
oldest friends. I thought you were Latino. No. But yeah, guys, enjoy this entertaining episode with the delightful Ramsey Badawi.
For those of you who don't remember me, my name is Ramsey. It's a good name. I like that name. It's a strong name, you know. I don't like it in customer service situations, though, because it sounds like a lot of things. You know, like I was at Starbucks recently, and the barista was like, "Hey, what's your name?" You know, for the cup. And I was like, "Ramsey." And she went, "Ooh, Ramses, like the king?" And I was like, "Nope, it's just Ramsey." And she went, "Ooh, Randy, like Randall?" And I was just like, "Nope, just Ramsey, like a slain child beauty queen, John Benet Ramsey." It's the only thing I could think of. The barista, she was like 19. She was like, "Who's John Benet Ramsey?" I was like, "Go get 2 cups of coffee. I got a story to tell you."
Guys, we have such a delightful, wonderful friend of the show. He is a hilarious comedian. He's Middle Eastern. We're going to get into that. There's so much tea to spill about that.
You mentioned that before any accomplishment or credit that he did.
Well, it
It's
is an
important.
accomplishment.
Well, it matters to me.
Yeah. Well, for some of us, find it as an accomplishment.
It's an accomplishment to survive in these times. He
Well,
is
yeah.
the host of the Worst Hour of the Week podcast. You can catch it on YouTube. Please welcome Ramsey Badawi. Yay.
Thank you
you
for
so
being here,
much.
Ramsey.
Oh, can you do the
Thank you.
Shakira?
I can't do it, man. My mom, oh my God, dude, every single...
You had the best tweet
Did
about
Shakira
that.
even do it right?
She did not.
She
no.
did
She
not.
looked like she was trying to...
Because,
Yeah.
she did what I just did.
Yeah.
Where I was just
She
kinda
looked like she was trying to lick a like an ice cream cone that was like
Yeah.
dripping really fast.
It's
Yeah.
a very complicated sound, and not a sound I necessarily associate with anything pleasant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's very embarrassing. My mom would do that all the time because that's
Yeah.
part of the tradition. Here's the weird thing there. It's like you'll do it at a high school graduation.
Yeah.
You'll do it at a wedding, but you'll also do it at a funeral, which is very bizarre.
Well, I laugh at all three, so it always is good for me.
I guess that's what it is. It's sort of that, you know?
It what is it called technically?
In Arabic, it is zagrat. Like it's like that. It's sort of a
And
lot
does that
of-
translate to anything?
Zuglet?
Or is it a sound?
It's more of a sound. Yeah,
Okay.
it's more of a sound, and it does. I guess it translates to. It's like celebrating, kind of.
It's like
a
celebrate good
celebration call.
times.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you
Yeah.
say, she was zagrat, you're like, oh, she was doing the sound for celebration or whatever.
She was popping off.
Yeah. I mean, like white Americans have their sounds too, because every graduation or wedding, you always hear some like sister or dad or something going like, ow, 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 ow. You know what I mean? It's that like,
Very
and
good.
it's a
Yeah.
very like white thing
of
to
course,
do.
of course.
I've never seen a black person go like, ow. ow! You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a very good point.
So
There was the
that is that. And
That's that.
Yes.
And the Mexicans, it's an air horn at the community
actually-
college graduation.
or like a straight up scream. Like, have you ever been
no,
like,
you have a grito. Yeah.
like
I
that?
wish you two
You
could have
do
been
have
my
one.
friends in high school because this really would have made me feel so much better.
You would have felt seen.
I literally was like, well, nobody has anything embarrassing going on.
It's just me.
I just not only have my mom like dressed in like covered her head and stuff, she's also doing the sounds. Great. I would be
Dude.
like-
And that's at Ralph's, right?
But it is crazy. Like a lot of like, because it was a very like Latino Super Bowl, but a lot of famous Latinos like Salma Hayek, Shakira, what was that dude like Damien Shavir, whatever. They're all like Latinos from Latin America who are half Middle Eastern.
Yeah.
You know, like half Saudi Arabian, half Iranian. You know what I mean?
Lebanese.
It's very odd.
Yeah, they get the famous ones are all half Arabic.
There are certain tracks. I know that there's a big population in Argentina. There's the huge population I learned of Palestinians in El Salvador. There are certain.
Yes, I saw that. That was really odd.
Yeah, I believe the president of El Salvador actually has Palestinian heritage, which is crazy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. So you guys do a lot of collabs.
We do a lot of collabs. You know what it is? I'm serious. It's like Latino culture and Middle Eastern culture both have like a kind of a leftism bend to it, which is like unity, solidarity, like that.
Interesting.
It's the same type of honor kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That like it translates well to the like from refugee to the land that they've sought refuge in. So there's like I know a lot of Lebanese, Argentinian people who also like it's like this Che Guevara kind of like fight
Yeah.
sort of thing.
You guys have a lot of fight in you. Well,
We have a lot of fight in us.
Well, that brings us to the subject we were talking about today.
Yes.
We do love Ramsey. I came up with Ramsey 100 million years ago in the county of Orange. But he obviously, if you can't tell from the name, which he has some great bits about his name.
Oh boy.
Boy.
You're making me sound so bad.
We're gonna cut this in.
It's totally-
No, you are Palestinian, and
Yeah.
we wanted to just talk about how not just that you're Palestinian, but I have always just been fascinated that you grew up Muslim and then became the president of the College Republicans at a university in Orange County, California.
Well, the name of the organization was
That is
actually
the-
Young Americans for Liberty.
And you also don't hear a lot
Yaffle.
about like Palestinian representation in show business because I feel like that word
Oh,
can
boy.
even be such like a hot button word. Like,
Yeah.
oh my God. Immediately, sometimes people swing to, okay, you're anti-Jewish, and it's like, okay,
Yeah.
relax.
You can't even get near the word.
Right.
Yeah, it's really challenging. I know that there are words that make people feel uncomfortable in every environment, and then you take it into a comedy club and it makes people feel even more uncomfortable because it's just I don't know.
Yeah.
It's
That's
so loaded.
interesting. Well, let's ask this: what is your Jonathan? What do you know about Palestine?
Palestine was the land that is like currently Israel before the UN kind of allowed a lot of Jewish people to return there and then pushed a lot of Palestinians into these different sections. And there's been a lot of fighting between the Israelis and the Palestinians over the land that they hold. And there's like a big discrepancy in power where some Palestinian terrorist movements will use like crude bombs and explosive devices, but then the Israeli government will use like full-on tanks.
Yeah, it's pretty badass.
It's a good Michael Bay movie.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. It is a very cool place to grow up
Very
if you're a
chill.
transformer. But other than that,
and they also I also know a really great piece of work that focused on like the Jewish and Palestinian conflict, which was this miniseries on Sundance Channel called The Honorable Woman with Maggie Gyllenhaal, who played a British Jewish woman whose family was responsible for making artillery to help, decimate the Palestinian community. When her parents were murdered, she decided to turn the company around and like stop making that type of weaponry and then start to bridge the gap between like Jewish people and Palestinians, which of course is like the conflict of the series because everyone is literally like, fuck you and your family. You know what I mean? So that's pretty much all I know. And what you told me when we were at Cafecito when I was researching you for the roast battle.
oh yeah.
That was a really good previously on Palestine.
It is a great series because she gets she has a baby with a man, or well, she gets raped by a Palestinian man. So I don't know if it shows. I don't know if it shows Palestinians in the greatest light, but it also shows Jewish people in a diabolical light because it actually shows both sides really, really awful. So
Now, this is my question. Even Palestine, because as we know, like I'm a witch. I was raised godless, purely with Satan.
yes.
Why does that land matter? What is there?
Also, sorry if anything I said sounded so ignorant. I'm sure it.
Oh no,
absolutely
it was all pretty. I mean, I would say to be as fair as possible, that so Palestine, there were many Jewish migrants throughout all of the 1900s. It's just after World War II. Are you guys familiar with the expression? Do you guys remember Rahm Emanuel? He was Barack Obama's chief of staff or
Oh,
whatever.
yeah, and his brother Ari.
Oh
Yeah, of course. You guys remember. Yeah,
He's the looming shadow in everyone's lives in
Yes.
LA.
It's really.
Do not piss him off.
Yeah. It's why I haven't made it yet.
I blame.
a very
it all
bad
goes
date.
back
No,
to
I'm
him.
But he had that Rahm Emanuel had that whole like never waste a crisis thing, which I think is still, which I think is actually relatively good advice. And so I think that's what I would say, that there wasn't so much a pushing out of the Palestinian people, there wasn't a ton of intentional sort of direction until the mid, it was like 20s, 30s, 40s. That's when it started to get a little bit more direct, but it really did. It was after the Holocaust, for obvious reasons, that they were able to really get the political momentum necessary to get everything done, to be established as a state. They got supported by the West, and through that were able to and also they fought very incredible. Like they won. I used to do a joke about this, but they won a war in 6 days. It was over on all 6 sides. It was like you started the war and then everybody was home Sunday.
Right. Yeah.
Like war is over. We lost. That's really more of a joke about how defeatist Palestinians are. We are such babies. So we were like, you know what? We're
done. Clock out.
We did not. Nobody
sign
told
up.
us anything about 7 days. We said 6 and we're out.
In and out. But
yeah.
so why is it such a contested area even pre that?
So Jerusalem is sort of.
Who is she?
Jerusalem.
I never know.
It's a lot of things. I'll say this. It's also. I don't discount the desire of the Jewish people to have a homeland. I think they went through an atrocious thing in history, and so there is that makes things a little bit more challenging. Where it's like, I don't know if necessarily every Jewish Israeli person is necessarily like, it needs to be here in Israel. I think a lot of them are more like, there just needs to be a place.
Yeah.
Right.
Aren't you the one? Don't you have the joke that God double booked the property?
Yeah, that's me. Yeah,
He's the worst Airbnb host.
Yeah, exactly.
1-star God.
It seems like a rookie move. Yeah.
Well, both are ancient people, so it is like a young god who did that. He's like, I'm sorry, and then he just blew up from there.
So growing up, you, what was your first memory of being Palestinian?
Well, wait. I do want to finish this question because it's an important one. So then, right, if you want to talk the Jerusalem beef, there's a Jerusalem beef because you have 3 religions at play, and all of them believe Jerusalem is somehow in their empire, and so that factors in a lot of ways, because not only do you have specifically where the Dome of the Rock is, I believe there was like a temple that was like it used to be there, and then
is it Dwayne the Rock Johnson's temple?
temple, yes, absolutely. By the way,
Is that hack? Sorry.
First person I've ever heard make that joke.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I'll cut it out too. I'm embarrassed.
It's an instinct.
I
It's your
know.
instinct. It's fine.
I say don't cut out bad jokes.
No, I'm
it's
with
who we
you.
are.
Compile them.
I do the same. We do the same thing on my podcast. We make it very clear that there's a lot of bad jokes,
Yeah.
and in fact, we highlight the worst one and put
Do
it at
you?
the end of the episode.
That's great.
Yeah. Once that temple goes down, the Jewish people are supposed to rebuild their temple, and once they rebuild their temple, Jesus comes back, and then that's sort of what brings the Christianity thing into the mix, and that's why the West is, or at least specifically America, is able to raise so much money for Israel, because you have a lot of people in this country who are like, hey, if the Jews aren't in Israel, Jesus doesn't come back.
And that's so crazy because it's like, besides that, so many like waspy like Anglo-American people.
I'm right here, okay.
Yeah, they don't give a fuck about Jewish people and historically haven't.
No.
So it's like
Yeah.
it's just so weird that
They're just like, we're just like, you keep the property so that nobody comes and breaks the windows, and then we'll come back.
right.
Is that it? That's the
yeah.
idea,
yeah,
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
And I know people think I sound very ignorant, and I am, because again, I was not raised with Christianity. So
It's so bizarre to me. You, my girlfriend is also like that as well, in that it's just nothing, none of the story.
don't
I'm like,
know.
you don't know anything about Abraham or
Yeah.
like, what? That's,
I feel like an alien. Like, I do feel weird.
Yeah. I'm Catholic. I grew up Catholic, but then I went to a Christian school, which had more of a Pentecostal bent. And I do have to say, Catholics, like Mexican Catholicism, cares more in terms of stuff that's not pertinent to Mexico, like in Europe, cares more about the Vatican and the Pope. Like I heard more stuff about that growing up than about necessarily Jerusalem and Israel. It wasn't until going to a Christian school and it being exposed to that type of Christianity, not Catholicism, that I heard so much about Jerusalem and all the stuff that you were talking, like comes rushing back to me, and how important Jerusalem is and
It's
stuff.
bizarre.
I'm like, oh, that's weird.
Isn't that so bizarre that they're literally teaching children in a school in Los Angeles? They're saying you gotta know about Jerusalem and how important it is. What? Why?
Yeah.
So now you have people growing up with this weird idea, and whether they
That has nothing to do with us.
Yeah.
Jerusalem has. I have no stake in Jerusalem
Without
or
a
Israel
doubt.
or Palestine.
But
yeah.
you walked around for at least probably 70 years subconsciously thinking you did have a stake.
Oh yeah, I was like saved for officially for 5 years, being
Yeah.
like, literally, I stand with Israel, like that type of stuff.
Yeah. It's important.
Yeah.
It's an important part of it, like especially that's so funny.
Yeah.
And you realize like you're like, it's so crazy
Right.
that there's a guy right now who can't get diabetes medication because somebody in a youth group in Los Angeles believes that they stand with Israel
Right.
for
Yeah.
for Jesus' return or whatever. Not even for a good reason. If
Yeah.
you were like, hey, I'm part of the knock the tower down thing, and I can kind of get behind that
Yeah.
that side of things.
Right.
But the part where you're like this weird outsider, like because the Christian role in this whole nonsense is like, ooh, we're gonna get them, we're gonna get the animals to fight, and once they fight, Jesus comes back, and we get to go to our God and like leave them on. It's
Wow.
it's creepy.
Yeah.
I hate it.
Very interesting.
It is very
Yeah.
much like that. Like it seems so weird because Jerusalem seems like a very Jewish and Palestinian place, and of course they have like I heard like a Christian quarter, right?
Yeah.
And
Very
it's-
friendly, by the way. Lots of friends. Like they're so cool with each other out there.
Right. But it almost seems like Christians there are neutral comparatively.
Sure.
You know? But it almost seems like, yeah, they're almost like sitting on the sidelines or egging people on. You know what I mean? Like it's not. And then when you grow up a little bit or you kind of leave your religion, especially Christianity, and you see videos of what's happening to Palestinian families and kids, you go, oh yeah, that weird like Israeli flag I put on MySpace that said I stand with Israel.
Sure.
You're like, why did I do that? Because why are you taking sides? This is a super complicated issue.
Sure.
And you know, you're basically standing with a government that's supported by our government, my own government, that are, you know, basically being very imperialistic and very violent,
And
you know?
right or wrong, I guess the part that I always find is like right or wrong. I don't care about what anybody believes. I would like to see whatever the logic you got to, to get to that conclusion. And whether you were right or wrong, you were definitely too young and too uninformed to have such a standpoint. And now there are
Right.
so many other people like you and so many other people who have my standpoint who are the same way, right? They don't know anything else. There are people I'm sure growing up in the Bay Area right now who've never for 1 second considered the possibility that there are good Israelis. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
there's some liberal, like progressive, like there's no way there's good Israelis, and they're just it's impossible.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's just it's so complicated, and it's so weird that they give everybody in this country a stake at it at a young age, and it makes people. There are people who I know who are like, I have no inclination for religion in me at all. I think Greg Giraldo used to have this great bit about it, which was like, the reason why Americans like Israelis more is because they're not on the top, they're not on the news going,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just an American sees that and they go like, you know what? I don't know what that person's doing. I don't like it
I
at
like
all.
the
It
other
makes
thing.
me
Yeah.
uncomfortable.
Yeah.
This other guy kind of looks white. I like that. You know.
Close enough.
Yeah, no, it's true because so many that is another thing to bring into it is race does party with religion when it comes to the world's viewpoint of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, because so many people, not everyone, I'm generalizing, but so many people Jewish people who came back to Israel or went to Israel post World War II were European Jewish people, and a lot of them are white. You know,
Sure.
Obviously there are black Jews and brown Jews, but that image does matter, especially to like racist societies like America. We're like,
Yeah.
oh, whoever the whiter one is.
Or even just going like, it's so funny you say that. A lot of them, there's a lot of European Jews, but then there's also a lot of like North African Jews. There's a lot of Jews in sort of the Arabian Peninsula,
Ethiopian.
Yeah, they all,
Yeah.
and in fact, like they all, if you really do look at like an Israeli and like what is it, a Sephardic Jew and like a Palestinian, you'll go like,
yeah.
they look. I have a joke about this as well. They all sort of look like Drake. All of them.
Oh yeah, I took this a shout out to Tova Goodman, who's my former prom date. She was a Sephardic Jewish girl, and people would always call her like a fucking Arab, you know, because she looked North African and
Totally.
very, very brown. People
Yeah.
would also like call her like a spick because she could very easily be Latina.
Yeah.
Both her parents are very brown. She's not like an Ashkenazi Eastern European Jew.
Yeah.
And it's just it always made me think like, oh, you do look a lot like how a lot of Palestinians look, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I think that there's a lot of people who live in this country who don't know anything about the particular issue, and they think like, oh, Jewish, like Woody Allen, like that.
Right.
And it's a
Yeah.
different. It's like, oh no, it's a different.
Yeah.
It's a different model.
It's a different model. My girlfriend's Jewish,
Yeah.
and so my parents, who I have never told my parents that she's not really Jewish. So I always go like, it's just not worth, it's not worth the convo. You know what I
Oh,
mean?
so you've never told them?
No, because they've met her. They know she's not, they know she's white,
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
But I've never said it because I just kind of go like, she doesn't really, like, it's not her
It's not the
thing.
version that they're thinking.
If I was dating a woman who was like, no, I'm Jewish and like all that stuff is super important to me, I would go like, all right, like let's, I guess, have the conversation.
Yeah.
But I'm not gonna break my father's heart.
What? So what if and when you tell them, what do you think will happen?
No, you know what? Nothing. Here's what I would like to happen.
Yes.
I would like them to get to know her a little bit better and realize she's a really wonderful person. And then when they do find out, they go like, well, on the deathbed, they'll be like, well, it turns out you can't judge a book by its cover.
Yeah.
And then they go, in this beautiful way that I
Their last
And then
words
you
are
write
about
it-
your girlfriend.
And then you write your screenplay and
Yeah.
you win best original.
And it turns out,
Yeah.
my dad changed his mind
Yeah.
after all the years. It's a beautiful story. I've got it up here. They would never change their point of view on her. It's delicate. You have to understand. You're talking about, my parents don't understand what the idea of a secular Jewish person is. Like if I go like, she's Jewish, they'll go like, oh my God, like, so she must like, who turns on her lights on Saturday? Like, it's like,
Like that hardcore.
yeah, they don't
Yeah.
know. Like the idea of Jon Stewart would blow their brains. Like there's just people who are just like, that's it. They're just Jewish. They're not that thrilled
That's their
about it.
thing.
It's not that, like they don't believe in it. So I think to them, I need to like, I wish I could educate them, and I can't.
Yeah.
But I think I will slowly kind of get there. As they get older, they are inevitably getting a little bit closer to me. I think you kind of have like a bell curve relationship with your parents, where there's like a big chunk in the middle where you don't see each other, and then at the end and in the beginning, it's like,
Interesting.
But as they get older, I anticipate that he'll learn some of these things because he's getting a little cooler.
I feel like you need to make like a children's book, but for your dad.
But I think it's because you make them cooler almost. You know what I mean?
You're right.
Because they get to know you as a grown man now.
Agreed.
And that really changes people,
And also, like the
hopefully.
older you get, ideally, they say even in like Nazi Germany, like the average age of an SS officer was 21. You can't
Yeah.
get older people
Yeah.
to think that black and whitely. So the older and longer you live, the more nuance there is, and you see how gray the world is.
Can you imagine a 35-year-old suicide bombing? Are you fucking kidding me?
They need impressionable, malleable minds. Yeah, like I have like my nephew who like is like a conservative Mexican American Latino who like is trying to be a cop, and like he is 21, and I'm just kind of like, when I can barely stand him. When I listen to him talk, I'm like, you're a fucking moron. You don't even try to see things from other people's perspectives, and not even other people's perspectives from your own culture. There's so many people who are Mexican American like you who do not view the world like you.
Yeah.
And it's just very odd. And I'm like, I hope by the time he's 35, he does not have such staunch views on things.
Let me
and
tell
have some
you,
more nuance.
That was you want me to? I'm Ghost of Christmas Future him. If you want me to go talk to him, I was when I was 21. I literally thought I was all about like small government. I was all about the conservative point of view. I thought like Western thinking was the only way that one should approach, because I watched a lot of negative things happen in the Middle East because of, I think, honestly, all of it is Islam. I realized as I've gotten older, but when I was younger, I think I thought it was like I couldn't quite separate being an Arab from being a Muslim. Which,
Well, that's hard, right? Because it's like being Mexican and Catholic. They're like quite integrated.
it's actually even more integrated than that. Because that's a great example.
I would agree it was more integrated, because there are definitely like Mexican Jewish people who are very Mexican, like Chris, right? But would still be Jewish. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So
And Chris is Jewish.
And the religion of Islam is so fundamentally built on the language of Arabic. Like, I don't know if you know, well, you would not know this, but in Islam, they say like the only way that you can really read the Quran is in Arabic. You
Yeah.
can't really read it. Like they'll go, you can translate it in English, but it doesn't make any sense.
It's
over
not the
there.
real word, yeah.
So what you've done with that whole thing is when you created like a preferred sort of ethnic group. So it's very it's very ethnocentrist. And
Wow,
it's
tribal.
That
It's very
is
tribal.
such a good point about the Arabic instilling that it's so bound to Islam, and those are so together, because Christianity is the opposite. They've translated it like Catholicism.
Totally.
They've translated it to so many different languages. There are very devout Brazilian Catholics and Asian Catholic. You know what I mean? Like, they've translated, and it's all about the word, not really the language.
Yes.
And that's so different from what you just said.
Well, listen, Islam has a lot of different ways of solving problems than a lot of those other religions do.
Yeah.
I feel like if they were all clubs, like Christianity and Catholicism is like they're like a lame, thirsty, like Vegas club that's like trying to get you to come in and giving you like free drink tickets.
Sure. Uh-huh.
And then, but Islam is like so exclusive. I mean, it's like a club in the 2000s where it's like, bitch, you cannot get in unless X, Y, and Z.
But you know what?
Yeah, yeah.
I'll tell you what, though. It's also, but Islam, the reason why it appeals to some people is it's also very much like, it's not, you know what? In your club example, it's a weird coffee shop that serves beer. And people like to talk about weird fucking ideas. Like Islam is so much about like, you don't understand, like it's like unity, and it's all about like, so their whole Islam's big goal is like it's very political. It's a lot about domination. And that's what ISIS's whole thing is about, is like, it's about, in the Quran, it says there needs to be this whole chunk of land that belongs to only Muslims. And sort of like, we're establishing that.
Yeah.
And so, the thing about, a lot of people don't realize is how important the Arabic culture is to Islam. And unlike, it's like, do you ever hear the concept of how language is like for communicating cultural concepts?
Sure, yeah.
And it's like, there are so many things that are loaded in there that they don't even make any sense in the Western sort of
Give me an
culture.
example of an insult.
Of an insult in Islam.
Yeah.
Okay.
And what's the translation?
Boy, I'm trying to think of what are the, you know what's weird? My parents, as emotionally abusive as they were, never were people who would like, also they go, yeah, Jash, which means you mule.
That's a classic.
That's classic.
Yeah, you know.
That's like a good one.
Is there an interesting way to say I love you? Is it like, you know, like my heart is in my hands for you or something?
You know what? That one I
well,
don't
you'd never
know.
heard those words before.
My
so
parents
you
have
wouldn't
never
know.
expressed any affection for one another ever.
Well, let's talk about your childhood.
I actually think, and I know I'm about to sound like probably every girl you've ever dated, but I actually think Arabic is really beautiful.
It is beautiful. Well, can I say
It is beautiful.
It
you know what? I
sounds
went on this huge tangent, and I wanted to bring it back to the point of talking about your nephew. Is it?
Oh, yeah.
So I had a big problem with that in my early 20s, which is I couldn't quite figure out what the good and what the bad was in my culture, and I wanted to wholeheartedly reject it. Your nephew might look at Latino culture and see things he doesn't like and not be able to like cut out the part where he goes like, you don't get what government did to like, you know, certain types of gerrymandering affected these people in this way, and it created funds to go this. They don't see the bigger
Yeah,
picture.
he calls like fucking paisas like more like Latinos that are more closer to Mexico and who are more like countrymen, country folk of Mexico.
Yeah.
Calls them like fucking savages, just like his dad. He basically is like a little mini dad. He doesn't think on his own.
I get that. And that's what I'm saying. So it's like,
Yeah.
it's very simplistic. It's very one-dimensional. And unfortunately, he has all of the energy of a 21-year-old
Yeah.
to really have these opinions. And that's what I was doing. I got into politics when I was like 20. and I like was running political campaigns by the time I was like 22. I had like a really crazy high paying job before I graduated from college, like running one of the most important state assembly races in all of California.
Ramsey is like such an interesting person and comedian because everybody else is like a loser. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They've done nothing. And Ramsey's always like, I was fixing elections before I fucking met you. Like you are truly like like not Manchurian Kid. I don't know. You're a shadow puppet government person.
Yeah.
You really did teach me a lot. Because I think one time you were like, you were saying you didn't vote in something. And I was like, being all like, I was like, that's your Arab cynicism. And you were like, I fucking ran Orange County like government things.
Yeah.
Like I know what's up. But how did you go? Okay, wait. So first of all, really quick, how old were you when 9/11 happened?
I was in 7th grade, so probably 11 or 12. 12.
I don't
And-
think that's relevant to that. No, I'm just kidding.
Jonathan completely turns on me.
Where's our cancel button? How did you personally experience a very very quick switch on suddenly feeling self-conscious about being
Well,
Arabic?
that's when it really like I would say that it was confusing the day 9/11 happened. Like I remember being that kind of kid who was just kind of like, well, before let's get all the facts in on the ground.
Yeah.
Like at school, like let's not say it was any, we don't know yet. It
Yeah.
could have been a lot of and it really did shake me. It really did make me realize like, this is kind of weird. This is not what I thought. Although I will say this, and I've never really thought about it until right now, but I did kind of see the brewings of that. Like when I would go and I would spend time in the Middle East, the way my uncles and stuff would talk, and they were always talking about these like operations and these people were doing X, Y, Z, and they knew the names of these like terrorist organizations that I had never heard about in America.
Yeah.
And when that plane hit in 9/11, I remember feeling like, oh wow, my world's just literally collided with each other. Like for,
Wow, that's
Wow.
really interesting.
So I finally was like, now everybody kind of knows all the shit that they're like,
Yeah.
I'm not crazy
And to be
anymore.
clear, that is not because all your uncles were terrorists. It's because they were immersed in the world.
Well, yeah, of course.
Right, correct.
Yeah, of course. So I lost.
Ramsey's watching it and then cue the Curb enthusiasm music. The towers are calling down. Like, my life.
I know. Sorry
That's
to make
awful.
this.
Sorry.
Sorry to make this about me.
No, but that is
And you did, and you grew up. You were born in America, and you grew up every summer, like going to Palestine
Yeah,
for
from
summers.
from when I was young. When I was like as young as 2, I was like, my parents would talk about flying with me as a baby and spending time there, and then I would do it every like year or year and a half kind of thing, and I would spend like 3 or 4 months down there, man, and it was like I lived there. I knew the channels, I knew the streets, I knew all that stuff.
And can you explain to us the geography of Palestine?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Palestine is like when you say geography, you mean just in terms of like what's the weather like? What's it like?
Oh no, meaning where?
What section is Palestine?
Yeah,
What
where is it in its current state
Yeah.
right now versus what's considered Israel?
Gotcha. So in Israel, if you're looking at Israel, the shark tooth, right? Like think about that little shark tooth looking thing. Palestine is divided into 2 parts. There's the Gaza Strip, which is closer to North Africa, like Egypt. It's in fact that's why a lot of people who live in Gaza are they have like an Egyptian dialect of Arabic. They kind of look more Egyptian. They look more North African. And then there's the West Bank, which is located. They're not contiguous, so there's a lot of space between them. And in terms of where Israel is at, I think I read the other day, if you're looking at 100% of the country, Israel has like full control over something like 93% or whatever, some crazy number like that. And so, yeah, I mean, both landlocked, no attachment to any. It's kind of a big deal, right? You can't trade. You can't get. That's why they can't get medicine in a lot of these places, is because Israel has like enacted a blockade, so they can't. They're not letting medical supplies in and out.
You can't even get it from other nations around the area.
They control the border every single which
Wow.
way. Yeah, there's no way where the Palestinians control anything.
And can you go from Gaza to the West Bank?
No.
Wow.
Ramsey
You're
can't even
relegated.
fly. You can't fly into Israel.
I cannot.
Because I asked him, of course, naively.
Yeah.
I was like, so if we went, could you just like take, would you want to meet us there? And you were like, I can't go.
You could so. The thing is so I have a Palestinian citizenship, which is really sort of like holding a lottery ticket at this point. But it's like it's not. It's someday it might be worth something. And my parents actually This is so funny because my parents they own a very significant amount of land there, and so the thing is like they're like, this land, if it ever becomes a state, is going to be like worth a lot of money. So we would like our family to we don't have really like a ton of things to pass on to you or whatever, and so basically they were like, part of the stipulations of you being able to inherit this kind of stuff is that you have to be a Palestinian citizenship. You have to be a Palestinian citizen.
Yeah.
If you travel into Israel as an American, they won't let you have like a dual citizenship. They'll cancel out your Palestinian one.
Okay.
So when I come through and I go through Israel, I go through as a Palestinian. I'm a second class citizen. I'm not doing any like, I don't get any special treatment.
No mud masks from the sea.
Although I will say this is the baddest ass thing. It's very funny. Yeah, that's awesome.
It's my Samantha Jones in Abu Dhabi. I mean, in Dubai.
I was so with Sex of the City too.
I really loved it. So I wanted to stop on it for a second.
90% of my Israeli interactions are the guys at kiosks trying to put a mask on my face. Anyway, go ahead.
There was like a couple of badass instances in where we would like flash the U.S. passport and it would be like very valuable. Like Israelis will not harass you. If they're about to start harassing you and you pull that thing out, they're like, you're good to go. So there were a few moments of like, I remember like one time we were going to miss a flight. We were like backed up. And one of the things that Israelis like to do is they really love, they are gaslighting the shit out of the Palestinians, man. It's crazy. So they love like when there's like a line, a blockade, or I'm sorry, a line at the, what do you call that? A border. They'll just like hang out and play Sudoku and just let people sit for hours just in their car waiting and waiting and waiting. And so one time we were just backed up and we were going to miss a flight. We were probably like 4 hours from the border. We were driving from Palestine to Jordan because when you fly out of Jordan, there's no Palestinian airport, you know? And I remember like we were, we got out of the car because the driver was like, you guys are American. You should go tell them up front that you guys have passports. They'll let you go right through. So me, my mom, and my younger brother got out and we were like walking towards them and they started waving their guns like away. But I was a kid and my mom is dumb. So my mom goes like, I think they're waving us to come over.
Oh God.
So we're like, well, this is, we'll just keep walking through.
Oh God.
I still get so mad at my mom this day because I'm like, how could you, when moms, the thing about moms that make no sense to me is they hold households together.
Yeah.
The most challenging concept ever. And then sometimes they'll step outside and they'll be like, are you allowed to touch a cop's gun? And you're like, Mom, no, you can't.
Yeah. My mom at the Grand Canyon got so close to the edge and then leaned her torso over when there's signs saying like, if you fall in, we're not liable.
Yeah.
There's no
Yeah.
railing. And me and my dad were like, oh my God, like, please come back from the edge. And she was just like, I just kind of want to see down the wall of the Grand Canyon. I was like, Mom,
That's what I'm
please,
saying.
I don't understand that. And to this day, I say, remember that? And she goes, I don't know why I did that. I just thought it'd be fun. I was like, that is literally, there was a sign right there, huge sign that was showing an illustration of someone falling in, doing exactly that. I couldn't understand it.
Moms just do it. I don't know if like having a child come out of you warps your sense of reality
They
and
say-
you're just
they
like,
say-
whatever.
Where you're just like, I'm a bad
forget
bitch. I can
things.
survive anything.
Yeah.
Grand Canyons,
You're like, guns come
Israelis with a
through.
gun. Yeah.
It's true. Look, it was just so funny the way she was so confident. Like, let's go, come on, they're on. So they're still waving us off, and we're walking. And I remember like, by the way, the setting in which we're walking. Picture a road, and then picture what you think the Middle East looks like.
Just desert, just sand.
hot, wavy lines.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
real.
Yeah.
And so we get like maybe 5 more feet up, and then they like fucking charge us, and like 3 Israelis come out of nowhere that we didn't even know where they were from.
How old were you?
I was 9,
Yeah.
maybe 10 or whatever, and they knock us down. Boom, you Arab dogs, blah 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 blah. Like, yelling at us in broken Arabic because they all speak a little bit of Arabic there or whatever.
Wow.
Like, you pieces of shit. Like, you thought you were gonna do this and that, and then we were down on the ground and we were like, we're American. We showed them the passport or whatever, and then this guy like looked at the passport and he was like, oh hey, I'm American. What's up, man? Like, I'm Daniel, and like he shook my hand or whatever, and it was a very weird feeling. like, sorry about that. And he like kind of like got us up, and like I just remember kind of like dusting myself off and being like, ugh, I feel so weird right now. Like,
Yeah.
I like he let me get up because we both have the same piece of paper.
Yeah.
Like, what
Right.
a weird thing.
In that instance, it was like
And
a
to flip
spell
so quickly.
broke, and he suddenly saw you as human.
He suddenly saw me as
Yeah.
human. Oh,
Yeah.
so he said, I'll never forget that. It'll never, just the way he said, hey, man. He like said, man. It was so like...
It's like such an American identifier greeting. You
Yes,
know?
you know what's
Yeah.
even my I saw him soften in a way that was so bizarre. Like
Yeah.
he had these like intense like just fucking lines, and everything just relaxed, and even his hair like it's like I remember seeing his hair like all of a sudden, you know, like it was a bizarre experience, but that was like a really like weird way of showing like it was like I was working undercover or
Yeah.
something, and like I'm good,
Yeah.
boys, you know.
So wait, so no Palestinians are allowed to live in Israel proper?
There are some, and
Okay.
you can do it with like permit. And then there are some people who are referred to as Arab Israelis. They are not Palestinians.
Okay.
They were Arabs who agreed to live in Israel under Israel's sovereignty way before, and they're sort of grandfathered in.
Interesting.
Got it. Okay,
Yeah.
so they try to stay out of the conflict.
They're sort of out, and they vote. They could be pro-Arab. They tend to be pro-Arab, and actually, like, you know, any sort of benefits that occur from Israel to the Arabs probably is pretty. You know, you can attribute to them. They elect people to Congress, or not Congress, Parliament or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So they're, you know, it's a complicated thing. That's the thing. It's unfortunately
Yeah.
a trite expression to use when
Right.
referring to it, but it really is.
What's the discrepancy in living standards between Gaza Strip, West Bank, and the Israel?
Depending on where you go, it ranges from. So Gaza Strip is like living in what I hear Tijuana is like a little bit. Actually, I take that back. Tijuana has a little bit more going on because there's at least some tourism and there's no money floating in the Gaza Strip,
Right.
but it is like a pretty rough environment. I mean, it's dangerous. People are tunneling, like
Broken infrastructure.
it's broken infrastructure, government corruption.
Yeah.
Like even like the people who represent the Palestinians, there's a lot of corruption there because
Yeah.
the Israelis can very easily buy off a lot of these people. And also, by the way, not only can the Israelis, but then you have other superpowers that are like interfering as well. You have
Yeah.
Hezbollah, who's rooted through Iran. It's like it's such a fucking complicated mess over there, and so. But the disparity, it's make no, like, there's no fucking question who's got it better over
Right.
there. I mean, Israeli standard of life is really good compared to the Palestinians. Now, if you talk to an Israeli about it, they'll tell you that's the Palestinians' decision. And I think there's probably a couple of good arguments there as well, you know?
Why would you entertain that argument?
Well, I would say that now, I think now things are getting better, but I would say that there was a lot of, you know, the Palestinian Party and the Palestinian sort of group of people that my father grew up with would never entertain the idea of a female leader. That's not to say that they need a female leader or don't need a female leader or whatever, but look around the world and look at countries that are successful and cultures that are successful and what are the best things that they all have together, and you'll see like, oh, like they seem to allow equality of gender and whoever and whatever. They let people regardless of you know, sexual orientation
race,
do
yeah.
whatever they want to do and blah 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 blah. And you'll notice that follows with some success. And the Palestinians, I do think, are not doing a good enough job embracing some of those qualities.
Mm-hmm.
And if they started letting girls and stuff get in and start, you know, do engineering jobs, and I suspect you would see a boom in their economy. So I think they have some cultural problems, and
Right.
and that's always been an unpopular talking point from. It's why I think a lot of Arab Muslims and even like Muslim comics who are not Arab are always a little rubbed the wrong way by me because I'm willing to talk about this stuff because I understand this stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
And most importantly, you're wearing a coral pink shirt as you say it.
Thank you.
Has your father
Millennial
seen
pink.
that?
He would just
die.
I mean, he's like I said, he's softened up a little bit. I'm sure I could talk him into it still being straight.
That's good.
As long as I used those words.
It's still straight. It's a man's pink,
It's a
actually.
man's pink.
It's not millennial pink because millennial pink is a much lighter shade.
Oh,
Sure.
okay.
But it's just
Yeah.
been a thing that I find. Yeah, that's a true thing that I think that when people want to talk about the Palestinian-Israeli thing, I think as somebody who's a Palestinian and has the only right to criticize it, I can say that that's something I wish, sort of as a culture, they would embrace more of. And until they do, I don't think they'll see the gains that they need to. They'll never sustain.
That's interesting. So for yourself, growing up like between two worlds, and each world is kind of in its own conflict. So like in America, you're like Muslim versus white, and then there you're like Palestinian versus Israel. Like, what was your identity growing up? Like by the time, let's say you were like 14, 15, 16, what did you feel about like your place in the world? Like, did you feel strongly rooted in being Palestinian, or were you just like, I'm from Orange County?
I think I was from Orange County.
Yeah.
I think that because...
So you're 714 first, and that's what matters.
I'm 714 way before I'm plus 022, whatever goofball.
And before you're 9/11. And before you're 9/11.
And before I'm 9/11, of course. Now, I am loyal to 9/11. That is something I'll never put behind me.
My favorite thing, when Gwen Stefani came out with her second album, she had a song called Orange County Girl, which, was my anthem.
Yeah.
And she says, back in the 714 days.
She was a 714 chick?
Yeah, of course. She's Anaheim.
I love all her references to OC, like in Cool, one of her hits.
Yeah.
She was like, back on Harbor Boulevard. Yeah.
Harbor Boulevard.
Yeah.
That's really great.
But yeah, so feel it like at home also, was this like a constant kind of like, I'm sure all dads have only one topic
Sure.
they talk about, and I'm sure this was your dad's.
This was unfortunately my dad's. My dad was an undiagnosed alcoholic who probably, or maybe a drug addict or whatever. And guys who are less enlightened, because my dad's a smart guy. He's not enlightened though. He's not a guy who like ever thought to himself like, oh, I'm gonna just like pick up a book and read. But if you told my dad like, hey, people who read on average earn $30 more a week, he'll get that. That makes sense to him. But to just pick up a book and read is not anything he's ever done. But he grabbed religion pretty early on in my life, and that became his thing.
Okay.
Where he's like, that's a good way to really like shape up a person who like can't be shaped up any other way. So it was, I think I grew up, especially in Orange County, very much feeling like, this is two worlds. And my dad was very clear about it at home. Like, we're Muslims. We fast during Ramadan. We pray 5 times a day. Sometimes I wear a weird hat.
So you were praying 5 times a day?
I think I got up to like 2.
In my mind, you're wearing like some sort of pop punk shirt, and then you're like getting down to like
it says Motion City soundtrack
and you're like
on my
your
shirt,
bangs are like hitting the ground.
Yeah.
Wait, would your mom or your dad be like, did you pray the proper amount of times today? Did you lie to them?
All the time. So my parents, as far as my parents are concerned, I'm like I'm a sheikh at the local mosque down here.
How often did you go to mosque? How often is
I
that?
used to go every night with my dad. He used to make me.
night.
When I was a kid, when I was in like high school, weeknights, school nights, dude, you're coming to the mosque.
Every night.
Every night. I had to go and fucking take my shoes off and
So you
walk
like
into a thing.
lettered in Islam.
Yeah, exactly.
You were varsity captain by the time you were senior.
And how does the mosque work? Is it separated by gender? Is it all inclusive?
Separated by gender.
Okay.
Women have to pray in what I assume is the garage or something, like the least comfortable.
It's like in the
place
club. It's
to
like
pray.
bitches to the right, players to the left. Is that what they say when you walk in?
Essentially, yeah. You got to slap it. It's in Arabic, but it says it.
Tag the thing.
You
Hey,
tag it.
Catholics separate gender too in a crazy way.
They do?
Yeah.
What's the Catholic
And Mass?
separation?
Oh, no, not in mass,
Oh.
but in Catholic schooling,
Oh,
a
yeah,
lot
yeah,
of the
of course,
schooling,
yeah.
even though it's the same school, will be completely different campuses, but the same thing. And then also nuns and priests, the whole thing.
Yeah,
like,
that's true.
I'm not saying it's the same thing, but they do
I'm
love
with
to
you.
separate by gender.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
I think this is a hilarious thing that religions do, which is really funny. Like, because I go like, you can make the argument to me in school. I'll listen to that argument. If you want to go like, boys and girls, keep them away from each other, otherwise they're gonna fuck. I'm listening.
But you make them
Yeah.
more horny that way.
My friend
that's
went,
a good argument. That's
Yeah.
right. I get that. But if you're like, look, in church, they're not gonna fuck in church.
Yeah.
Let them be
It's
together
true.
in church. I
Yeah.
promise you, they
Yeah.
will keep it together.
Be safe.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're going every single night.
Every night.
Five nights a week?
Yeah, so the way Muslim mosque works is, so they have a big one on Friday, right? That's the a prayer that occurs in the afternoon. There's 2 afternoon prayers. The first one is is Friday first one. That's the big one. And then every day you have 5 prayers, and they're all segmented to certain time zones or time periods, right? Like 5 a.m. and then you have until the next prayer before you can, you have to do these in time too.
Right.
That's the hard thing. It's all time. Like you got to.
It's a lot of planning.
This is what I say to people: you cannot be half-assed Muslim. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
It is. You can't be like, well, I just fast during Ramadan. Other than that, I'm doing nothing else.
You're all in
Yes.
or all out.
So,
Right.
so the nighttime prayers is I would go, and we would go like for those like late at night prayers, the 4th meal prayers.
Yeah. 4th meal, the Taco Bell 4th meal prayers. Is there a lot of drama at a mosque the way that there is at a church, I would imagine, or like
Not Catholic. Well,
I don't know, or like a Baptist church? They're always like,
yeah, that type of stuff seems to be like.
is there drama? Is there politics within the mosque? Of
Baptist
course
church.
there is.
Yeah, there is politics, and it's really interesting. There's always politics between like the guys on the ground doing the praying and the guys who are like board members. They make decisions on
Right.
like funding and stuff like that.
Oh,
Yeah.
And they would never be like at the mosque. They would show up like once a week. These guys were like professionals. They were businessmen.
Okay.
They're whatever. But like there was a lot of like, man, these people don't understand like how this place is actually run. Like they're so there was always like kind of like this sort of organizer experience that I felt in the mosque where like, I mean, not me organizing, but other people being like, you know what's going on up top, man. We got to stop them. They're funneling money the wrong way, and that was like the kind of politics that I had heard growing up. But it was never, it was always about like they're getting in, the man is getting in the way of our relationship with God. It was weird.
Yeah.
It was never. Yeah.
Is this is a loaded question, not towards you, but towards me. Is there pedophilia in Islam that much? in
Why
mosques?
towards you? Oh,
Because
you
I'm
mean that you would ask
Catholic,
that.
and I'm still like,
got it.
I'm still taking polls. Like Catholics, you're still winning on pedophilia. So
We definitely don't have any the problem with the Catholic Church is that you guys have that official church, the Vatican.
yeah, no, all these ridiculous tiers, yeah.
And the tiers below it, but we all sort of
Yeah.
look one general direction. Islam is not, there's none of that in
Okay.
Islam. Kind of Saudi Arabia, but not really. Like Saudi Arabia is just a thing.
Right.
But so there is for sure abuse going on, but it's not happening in the same way. The system of Catholicism sets things up differently, right?
Right.
It just like breeds it, unfortunately.
Ew.
Oh God,
Probably
that was a bold question.
probably could have
Well,
used a better
I'm
word.
just saying, you know what?
I know
Catholics-
you're hoping somebody's going to outdo.
Oh yeah,
the
there's
mantle.
no what. There's
Yeah.
still no. I still think it's probably one of the worst religions solely because of that.
Sure. Yeah,
Catholicism.
There are parts of the world and there are parts of the Muslim world that it's a problem, but it has nothing to do with the religion. It's like a cultural problem. You guys ever see that documentary? It's actually Afghani.
I read The Kite Runner.
Is that what the Kite Runner's about?
Traumatized.
I'm glad I didn't read
deeply
it. I'm
by
glad
it.
I forewent reading it as a child.
Yeah, I'd like to move on from this subject. I'm very traumatized. So what? When did you?
You never would have made it in Catholicism.
I never would have made it in Catholicism. So when did you stop mosquing and start republicaning?
That's a good question. I
How did that translate?
I was probably just transferring over to a public university.
Okay.
And that's where a lot of people become Republicans.
Okay, your first year.
It's
It's like the freshman
state-funded school.
15, and then you explore libertarianism and.
Do you understand how bold I was? College Republican who received financial aid. Where do you get off?
And you were railing against social services.
Where do you get off? You were getting financial aid.
You get off in the White House. That's where you get off. Okay.
The state was handing you a goddamn check.
Yeah.
When you became a Republican, did you know any other Arab people, Palestinian people, non-white people who were like in your college, like who were thinking like you?
Yeah, what's funny is I always knew people who were thinking like me, and they would also be very secretive about it. They'd be like, I kind of think like you too. Like it was a lot of that because I think whatever I was in college was actually not really had to do with like whatever's going on in terms of like. I wasn't that interested in like the presidency.
Mm-hmm.
I was really interested in like I'd hated the way the people around me were, and everybody around me in college was like a big like progressive like everybody everything was, and they're just pissing me. I was Republican as a punk.
What made you like you were a punklicant? No,
Yeah.
that's
Oh, boy.
I'm really killing it tonight. So you are a suburban
Keep it in.
teenager going to Mosque. You were also in a pop punk band. We'll talk about that. We'll edit in some of that.
Yeah.
Those hot tracks. When did you start thinking or like learning about how were you shaping your worldview and being like, oh, I got to get on some message boards or
Well,
what?
yeah. I mean, a lot of it was doing research because I mean, it was cool. I remember just like the early days of the internet, how fucking awesome it was. It was so fun. You know how fucking fun
Yeah,
early
it
internet
was pretty crazy.
It was so good. You would
Yeah.
just hop on and you'd read stuff and like it would be hard to find, but you'd find it. That's when I think like we got a computer and I was like spending my computer time doing a lot of reading.
Yeah.
On like, well, it turns out the Prophet Muhammad had like a 9-year-old wife or whatever. That's kind of weird. Like,
Just
You're
when
like,
rabbit
that's wrong.
holes were fun and not mind numbing.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But that shook me a little bit
Yeah.
even. And I
You were
remember
like, I don't remember that part.
yeah, I remember just like reading all these things and just kind of realizing as you start to read all the stories and realizing how similar everything is. And
Yeah. Well, the Virgin Mary was in 6th grade. So let's
Yeah.
just, yeah.
That's the thing, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
It gets really weird when when
Yeah.
you start talking ages.
No.
Oh yeah, the year they start to bleed, it's like impregnate
Oh,
them.
God.
You know, it's
Yeah.
true. It's,
No, I
it's
know,
historically,
I know.
yeah.
It's bizarre, and that's if we could really just boil it down to that. It's like that's the thing that really bothers me. Is like, why are we listening to this nonsense? I know that's what we're all thinking, but why is it so hard? It's
Yeah.
just it's crazy to me that like I have to go to like showcases and be like talk about how cool Islam is. Like, no, it's not.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's not that cool. It's
Yeah.
scary.
There's your pull quote. Ramsey Badawi, I did not say that. You're the one
I
who
will
just
happily
said
say
it's
that.
not that cool. It's scary.
I will happily say that. I will.
So this was kind of the beginning of your conflict of
Yeah.
wanting to idealize more Western ideals.
Yes. I started to research more, and then I would start to read different people. Christopher Hitchens. I knew you.
Iconic.
It should have surprised nobody. I love Christopher Hitchens still, man. When Christopher Hitchens died, I imagine this is what everybody felt when Kobe died. You know what I mean? I was so
The loss of a great comedic mind.
I was devastated when Hitchens died. I really did I loved him. So I read all those guys. I swear to God, dude, I was on the surfboard in the front of this sort of like weird Reddit, like loser white guy culture.
Yeah.
I was in the forefront. I knew Jordan Peterson way before people knew who Jordan Peterson was.
Yeah, you predated Reddit.
I was
Yeah.
predating it. There's a picture of me from a Halloween like 6 years ago, and I was Milo Yiannopoulos, and people were like, "What is that?"
Oh, deep respect for being a gay conservative.
Yeah, I was a gay
Yeah.
conservative. So
Yeah.
I even remember when I first heard about Milo, I'm like, this guy's phenomenal. Like, because I was that age. I was 23 maybe when I first
Yeah.
heard about Milo. And I'm like,
Spouting his doctrine in pearls and pearl earrings.
Yes.
It's insane. Also, I remember one of the funniest things. I think I heard this on a comedy podcast, but it was true. So, like a quote that Christopher Hitchens said about like women not being funny, how they're supposed to be like the laughers, and they like open their mouth to present their like orifice to men. Like that's like evolutionary, his theory about
Sure.
why women aren't funny and why they laugh at men.
Yeah.
And I was like, that is fully hilarious. If he didn't truly earnestly believe that it would be, he truly would be one of the funniest people ever.
Yeah.
it's a really funny look. Okay, part of not being religious is you don't take everything, and I'm believing that Vanity Fair article that Christopher Hitchens did. That's his thing. That's his sword to die on. But anyways, he informed a lot of how I was thinking a lot about. He was very pro Iraq War, and I kind of like got super into the Iraq War. God, I was. Just,
Their first album was great. Dude, at that time, I was.
as you can imagine, women loved me back then. A lot of Iraq War talk.
Were you wearing? I just need to know. Were you wearing blazers to school?
No,
In my mind, you were.
No, you know what? I was like really like kind of it was like a real normcore kind of thing going on. I was
Okay.
like, no, I'm wearing a shirt from Walmart. You know,
Yeah.
like I'm a good old
Whoa.
boy.
You're
Like,
a good old
don't
boy.
even like.
I was wearing ties to college because it was like an Avril
Oh,
Lavigne
of course,
era.
and a fedora.
And a fedora.
Yeah, wow.
And one time a guy stopped me in the quad and he was like, I like your style. And we went on a date. Anyway, okay.
Ew.
Whoa!
And that's the tie that got me a guy.
in college, that's the tie that got me a guy.
Yeah, truly. He was like drawn to me.
What?
My little tie.
What grade were you in?
I was in college. It was like my freshman year in college.
Freshman year. Well, this is important. Freshman
Yeah.
or senior?
At Cal
I mean,
State Fullerton, our beloved alma mater.
Dude, Titan. Dude, I can't believe a Titan did that. I
A
can't
Titan.
believe That's our
Honey, I put the
mascot.
tie and tighten.
Yeah, dude. Oh no.
I'm on fire, and none of you guys are.
I was the flat iron, your hair really long emo thing, and then of course by like after PE it would be like completely curled and waved up again. Like I could never keep it completely flat ironed. It
Keep
just
it-
wouldn't. Yeah.
So in high school, I was all emo. I was just
Oh,
that was it.
okay.
I was all emo,
Yeah, yeah.
all the time.
Yeah.
But that was always challenging for me was the hair because you and I have I think almost similar-ish hair
Yes,
in terms
yeah.
of like texture.
Yeah.
And I never could figure it out. And there's no goddamn way my father would buy me a hair straightener.
Oh, yeah.
There's
Oh,
no
yeah.
fucking way. I
Yeah.
didn't have sisters.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. I had 3 sisters. I had to steal that.
Yeah. There's
Yeah.
no fucking way. I remember I used to wear girl pants because like they just couldn't like they never
Oh, yeah.
made guy
They never made 'em
pants
tight enough.
that were
Yeah.
like that were tight enough.
That was a very specific era of history between when they started manufacturing male skinny jeans and when
Right?
the
Isn't
boys
that-
and they were low rise. So like,
It was always so weird.
oh, what a time!
Yeah.
It was a
So you
weird
were
time.
crossing gender identity very early on, as a good Republican does.
Yeah, as a good Republican has in his
Yeah.
past. you
So
know,
no
it was
blazers,
checkered.
no blazers.
Yeah, no
Okay.
blazers.
But you were
And- yeah.
active in the college Republicans.
Young
group.
Americans for Liberty. Yeah, yo. I was the chapter president.
Were there any females?
There was a couple of feisty females. Yeah.
And were they like from Texas? In my mind, they're blonde.
Yeah, they were they were orange. They were good old Orange County chicks.
Or were they like,
Yeah.
in my mind, they're like the weird, like Stepford biblical wives that
Yeah.
are like blonde. They all look like Fox News commentators.
Like
Absolutely.
Tammy Laren. That's
yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Tom-
And they're just like, the thing is that like my dad, he worked hard for what he got. And maybe if
Yeah.
blacks would try working, they would do it.
that's a great Tammy Laren.
You know what though? There's a ton of those, but then there's also this other breed of Republican female that I loved, which was always like, I got fucking 3 jobs, like just angry, like because they were always like either people who were super entitled or people who were genuinely super hardworking, and you were like. And so they were almost fueled by this, like, I'm so hardworking. Why can't everybody else be as hardworking as
Yeah.
me? Not realizing that,
Yeah.
a zillion things, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So those were the two kinds of, I feel like, female Republicans I would run into. Was the
And
yeah.
did you hook up with them?
I did date one for several years. Who check this? This is how I got into politics because her family was like really well connected into like Orange County politics, and so they got me like jobs right away. Like they got me a job in people's offices. I was getting like internships.
You were like Kushnering before.
yeah,
It was hot?
It was yeah, absolutely. I did participate in corruption. Which is the most Arab thing about it.
And you know what? You had to go to America to do it.
Yeah. My parents are proud of me.
That is so funny. Will
Now-
you say her name? Just what her first name was?
Her name was Jacqueline.
Okay.
Okay.
Wow, named after a Democrat.
Hold on.
How gross.
Jacqueline, she was Latina. Very like Latina.
Plot
very
twist.
was Spanish fluent, like just very connected with her Mexican heritage, but
Uh-huh.
also very conservative, very much like went to Catholic school, the whole
Was she
the whole
first
thing.
generation or like 5th generation?
Probably I think actually third.
Oh yeah.
Her grandma was obviously like a
The immigrant.
So
Yeah.
is that second or third? Whatever
That's-
that is.
And
I
was she
think that's second or third.
your second or third cousin? I can't remember.
Yes.
Yeah.
She sounds like what I hear when you talk about some of your more conservative female relatives.
Yeah, although I do have a lot of conservative, not a lot, but a too much for my taste, relatives who are first generation and conservative, and that blows my mind.
It's the
I'm
Catholic
like,
school thing,
but
right?
No, they don't all go to Catholic school.
Okay.
I think it becomes that way when they got older and they have forgotten a way of life that their parents came from. They forget. I feel like it is a forgetting of who they are. It's like a buying
Yeah.
into this American dream, and they think they need to leave part of their culture behind, or they think
Yeah.
they need to, in order to better it, they need to condescend to people in their culture instead of trying to, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a privilege of thinking you don't have privilege.
Right.
It's you're now going like, well, I'm Latino, or in my case, I'm Arab. I seem to be doing fine. I'm thinking this way. Why can't everybody think the way that I
Exactly.
think?
Yeah.
And you don't go like, well, maybe that person is struggling money wise. Maybe this, maybe that. Maybe this
Right.
person was assaulted as a child, or what?
Right.
Yeah.
You just don't know how to think in that
Yeah.
way because it's so crazy.
Oh, you know what's another big thing? The Latinos who, even though they're first generation, their parents happen to have obtained papers to come over versus those who couldn't and had to come over, quote, illegally.
Sure.
That there's this big thing of
No,
like,
yeah.
well, my mom came over from Peru
yeah.
legally, and but you just don't understand that a lot of that falls to chance when they're immigrating. When you hear the stories of how they immigrated, a lot of times it's down to the final moments whether they're going to cross legally or illegally.
Yeah.
It comes down to pure luck a lot of times. So this like superiority complex over other immigrants who don't have papers just blows my mind. But you have a lot of them working at the U.S. like immigration department who are helping make these policies, conservative Latinos who think that they're better.
Yeah, it's really interesting. It's this weird thing of like, I'm better than you because my grandparents had a more of a choice when they wanted to leave. Like, it's a weird line to draw.
Yeah.
I'm better than you because my grandpa had a piece of paper and said it was okay. It said he was okay.
Right.
It's so
so
really
weird.
crazy that people can be so like turned off by that stuff. By the way, there are if you want to have an argument about immigration or anything, it's like there's an argument to have everywhere. Like, sure, could something be better? Could something be worse? Of course.
Right.
But the part where you are so ignorant that you're like, oh man, we're legal 3 generations back. It really is mind boggling to me. What a
Right.
chance! What a lucky thing.
Yeah, it's true. How did you leave this way of thinking?
How did you stop being a conservative Latino yourself?
How did I stop being a conservative Latino? That's a great question. You know what? It really was. I think moving out of Orange County was certainly helpful. Being in Orange County, it's very easy when you're surrounded by like sort of this like mentality and comfort and whatever. But I mean, honestly, it's like I think I still feel like I have some probably points of view that are considered more conservative leaning than not, but I think I'm like, how could anybody be anything? Like, does it make any sense?
But you must have hit a point because you were like the president of the YAFL or whatever. What were you? What
You were a
acronym?
president of something,
Yeah.
and so
Oh,
that
yeah.
means
You were the president of YOLO, and then you.
Yeah. Well,
And then what made you kind of fade after that? And then you were working on campaigns. You were corrupting campaigns and running
I was corrupting
campaigns.
campaigns. I was running one of the largest, most important campaigns in all of California, Assembly District. I believe it was 65. Chris Norby was the name of my candidate. This was Norby. He was, I believe, your assemblyman for until Ramsey Badawi got his hands in there. He was your
I'm aware. My mother was a public school teacher, and
Ooh.
and
Sharon Kirk Silva.
oh, honey, close personal friend. The mayor of Fullerton. Ever heard of her?
Yeah.
No.
Well, I'll
A
have
colleague,
you know.
a close associate of my mother's.
I'll have you know right now. I can call
You can have her killed. No.
I'll call the vice mayor of Fullerton.
I didn't know I was with 2 high-powered OC officials.
Yeah.
City of Fullerton.
Well, I wouldn't say OC. I'd keep it
Yeah.
to Fullerton.
Okay,
Yeah.
fine.
Your Belinda.
As my mother calls it, as my mother calls Fullerton, the Paris of Orange County.
Yeah.
But yes,
So I was at that campaign or whatever, and I was the campaign manager for Chris Norby. And here's the thing: the reason why they had me there was I didn't have a ton of experience, but they were like, "This should be a cakewalk for this guy because this is a solid red. He's gonna win or whatever." What they did not anticipate was Chris Norby was such a wild card that he did a lot of things that pissed off a lot of people, and he pissed off Disney, which like.
oh, honey.
Because
No.
Anna, you
No.
don't fuck
Yeah.
with Disney.
Yeah.
Disney just did some goofy stuff where they were like funneling money from like different
Goofy.
They really. Pardon my language, pardon the pun, but Disney did some real goofy. Yeah, they were.
Were they acting real Mickey Mouse about it?
They really Mickey'd those numbers. Now that sounds like I'm being racist to Irish people.
I know.
Oh, he's making up the numbers.
I don't think you can be
Making
racist
it?
towards Irish people.
Yeah, I guess
It's
that's
okay.
what- yeah.
He's saying it to my face, so it's fine.
No, so he pissed off Disney, right? He
Okay.
basically said that like, he voted to end like these crazy tax breaks that like the film industry was taking, and it pissed Disney off, and they put all this money in, and they turned this really easy campaign to a really challenging one for me where I didn't have a lot of resources. They were like pummeling us with like ads, and I was like on the floor watching how people win elections. Little fucking you think it's cool tweets and shit, and like it's 3x5 cards. It's old people. Nobody gives a fuck. I'm not gonna vote for anybody who I didn't vote for last year. You're done
Yeah.
with it's all about rallying out all those people. It's very from the outside. I like to watch it, but doing it is makes you lose belief in God and anything.
In the movie version of this, in my mind, I see Ramsey. His suit jacket's off. He's in a button up though. He's sweating and his arms are rolled up to the side. And
I can show you the
and
picture.
phones are ringing in the background, and he's like, just like raking his hands through his hair, and he's like, "You're fucking killing me, goddamn cocksucker." Because that's like I watch Veep, so that's how you all talk.
When this podcast is over, I will show you pictures, and you know, you can. I'll send them your way to share them with the pod listeners.
Ramsey is the few person who I would say, I think you'd agree, the before picture and the after picture, the before comedy and after picture, you got a lot hotter, I would say. He looks like,
and he's a handsome man.
Remarkably different. Like it's
yeah.
rare that as you get older, you clean up.
I figured
That's
it out a little
compliment,
bit.
I'm
Yeah,
saying.
thank you. No, I did figure it out a little bit. I do look at those pictures. You look quite different. But there's
Yeah.
some pictures of me like button up, really wrinkly shirt, like I hadn't ironed it or anything. Like
Yeah,
a slob.
you had your hair was like very closely shaved.
It was
right?
shaved. Just
Oh,
buzzed.
yeah.
I would buzz
Yeah.
the haircut because I was very.
You looked 10 years older, I would say.
It was like all about being utilitarian, but you have such a beautiful head of hair. Like you need to show it off.
I was very self-conscious. Being in Orange County, wishing I was white, I was always like, why can't I just have cool straight hair? Like,
Yeah.
I was always, so to me, buzzing it made so much more sense. Like,
Yeah.
there we go. Now I don't have to think about this anymore.
It is crazy. Like I did have this recurring dream from kindergarten of going out into the sun and suddenly my hair being bright blonde and
It's
so flowy and lanky like a Macaulay Culkin to where it wouldn't do fucking weird things. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because it always
It's
seemed
real.
like the white kids had just perfect, straight, like hair that just did whatever the style that was in. It could do that.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
perfectly.
It
Perfectly.
just my
they
hair
weren't even
wouldn't.
trying. They would just kind of like move, and you would go like,
That
That's all I
90s
do-
like
all I-
split style
Yeah.
couldn't happen.
You just shake your head and it like
Oh, yeah.
effortlessly
It's so
falls.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
remember being a kid. So to me, buzzing my hair, it's kind of interesting. Like when you do look at the sort of the movie version of my life, it's like the buzzing of the hair was so symbolic of like,
Yeah.
I'm now, fuck it, I'm white.
It was
now.
your G.I.
Yeah.
Jane moment.
Yeah, it was my G.I. Jane moment. I'm living it all.
But you ended up
behind.
just looking Mexican.
Yeah.
very Mexican. Katie just pointed out, Chris named the cousins I looked like.
Yeah.
So it's really funny.
But so you're running this campaign. They're beating your ass.
They're
Yeah.
beating us, dude. I
Yeah.
mean, they're throwing money in from like, because here's the thing, campaign finance is so crazy. People don't even understand. Like the rules are like, as an individual, I can't give more than $1,500.
Yeah.
But the political party can make donations in as much as they want to. Now, if I donate and I get a bunch of money into the Democratic Party of Sacramento, and then they move that money over to the Democratic Party of Riverside, and then they move it back up to fucking the one in Oregon, then they move it back down to Orange. It's like they do this crazy thing where they're just shifting dark money all
Wherever
over
it
the place.
needs to go.
Wherever it needs to go, and
That's
you don't
like-
know where it's coming.
That's how the dark web works.
Yeah.
It just goes from server to server, so you can't.
So you can never trace it. Exactly.
That's crazy.
And so, we were just getting pummeled. We were like, where are they getting all this money? And learning that kind of stuff fucking killed my faith in democracy. I was
Interesting.
dead. But at the end of that, we lost. Like, I forfeited, thanks to Ramsey Badawi. This is why this was the most important race in all of California, was if it flipped, the Democrats had a supermajority in the state assembly.
Dun, dun, dun.
And a supermajority means you just get to pass the law. You don't really need to. You can go back on a veto. You don't
Yeah.
need
You're
the
just
governor.
full total power.
You have total power.
You're RuPaul on Drag Race.
Exactly.
I love it.
And thanks to Ramsey Badawi, guess what? Democrats now have a supermajority. I was depressed. I was really sad.
You created history and we didn't even know
Oh
this.
my God.
Thanks to that's the thing.
Well, it was a little bit of Disney and a lot of Ramsey. I'm guessing. Is that the ratio?
A little bit of Disney magic.
Yeah.
That's all you needed.
That's how egocentrical you are as a child. I literally was like, I can't believe I cost
I lost.
California.
Just sitting in a dark room.
Oh my God.
drinking a scotch, actually apple juice, not legally allowed to drink.
So when you moved into comedy, how did that change you?
I was still working as in like
How
a
did
campaign
you go
off-
from
Yeah.
So 10, we were cleaning out the campaign office, and I remember I was like it was that week, and I remember just being like, the idea of ever having to do this again was devastating to me, and I was drinking 4, 5, 6 energy drinks a day.
as opposed to now you're about 4.
I like to tell people I'm doing the energy teas now. It's a little
Okay.
a little
It's healthier. It's a slow burn energy
Yeah.
mate.
Yeah, well,
Right?
not quite that. It's still made by Monster, but it's like a It's a lot more zen. Is
The
what I
cleanse.
said.
It's a monster cleanse.
You ever see the ones, the cans with like a dragon and it's just like ginseng, but it's
Yeah.
a million
Okay.
other things?
Yeah.
I'm drinking those now.
Okay.
Anyhow, I then went to a doctor to find out why I was like so tired or whatever, and he was like, "You're depressed. You know all this other nonsense." And I realized that the whole thing was I had just gotten so depressed from it. I hated it so much. The idea, everything. I couldn't move. I couldn't get out of bed. I was stuck for weeks, and I'd been listening to like podcasts at the time, and I remember this is an unfortunate thing, but like the way podcasts motivated so many fucking losers to get up.
Oh,
and
it
do
created.
something.
That's what WTF started me.
Yeah.
Like, it was, and that was like 2010.
It did create this like false sense of glory
Yes,
and like
it
history
did.
and story. But then when you actually listen back, you go, oh, like they actually were really hard times, and now we're actually living that now. You know, it's hard.
And even now, like occasionally I'll listen to an old podcast, like from the heyday of podcasting. Where
Yeah.
it's like Pete Holmes episode 8 or something.
God.
But you'll go like, oh,
Yeah.
so much of that advice made no sense to me back then.
No.
Yeah.
I had no clue. Maybe it makes no sense to me today, but I at least can conceptualize it a little bit better.
Yeah.
But anyway, so yeah, I just remember had been listening to like podcasts, whatever. And I tried stand up when I was 19, and I like fucking bombed so bad that I never thought I could do it again. I wanted to do it when I was a kid. But when I started listening to podcasts and hearing like, oh no, you're supposed to bomb, it's fine. I'm,
Yeah.
got this second desire to do it again, and I went and signed up for the Groundlings.
Oh.
I didn't know what to do.
Interesting. What was your next, or you said you did one stand-up mic, but what was your first stand-up mic, like your official first stand-up?
Max Bloom.
It was
in Orange County.
Bloom.
I missed that
baby.
mic. I wasn't.
Our
I didn't
home
go a
club.
lot, but
It's our home club.
You took me to that, and I
Yeah.
loved it.
Yeah.
I showed up. I was wearing a shirt, like a business casual attire. And I didn't want to sign up. I was like, I'll just come and watch. I'll
Yeah.
see what's
The
going
lurker.
on.
I was a
And we were
lurker.
all like,
Yeah.
why is a dad here?
I'm sure. You know what's so funny? I'm sure while I was
You
there.
looked 40 and you were in a suit.
Yeah.
Business casual.
I'm sure while I was there, every comic was like, hey, who's that? I'm sure
Yeah.
they all riffed it. But I'll never forget walking in, and Connor is walking away from the stage, and he's got an eye patch on because he had had a sty or something.
Yeah.
But I'll never forget.
I remember these years.
You have just these moments like I'll never forget him just kind of like with the sign up list looking at me and just kind of being like here, and like he just like handed it to me or whatever. And then I signed up, and he went up and he just continued to bomb. And I remember being like, like I think I could do this.
Yeah.
Like he had inspired me to do it. And I then for I think that time stuck. That was like it for me right there.
Yeah.
How do you feel your identity has affected your chances in show business, if at all?
Interesting. I think that my point of view is different, and it's not. It's really a challenging question because I know that some things. To me, I have like a certain point of view that it makes sense to me that it might not be the most appealing thing for NBC to want to pick up tomorrow.
Well, this is a problem we all have. You are not the right kind of Muslim. You're not the right kind of gay
Yeah.
Or Latino?
or Latino.
Yeah.
And I
But don't you go like
am too smart for women.
so funny.
Agreed.
So funny.
But yeah, so it is.
But
yeah.
I get it. So I get
Yeah.
it. I'll tell you what it has done. It does make me resent certain narratives that I don't think I would resent in any other context.
Yeah.
Right.
I sometimes get a little like whenever I see somebody try too hard to like force in a woman with hijab into a show where it's like she's like the feminist, but like for some reason she's wearing a hijab, but never talks about like wrestling with that or whatever. Like these kinds of like weird things will always like they send a
It's
shiver down my spine.
the Disney version of diversity.
The Disney version of diversity. Always
Yeah.
is. So not only do I feel like they're not looking at what I'm doing, I almost don't give a fuck about that. But sometimes I will go like, why do you have to pretend that that's what I am? Like, why is that the narrative you're putting out? Why can't you put out a more complicated one? But, I guess at the same time, don't you... I mean, Jonathan, you're saying you have a similar issue. Don't you just kind of go like, this is just the time we're in. It's unfortunate. I probably would have been way better off in 50 years from now coming up, but
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
the future.
it's the future. What do I do?
I definitely feel that because I feel like either I have to be like super, super like femme, skinny, twink, kind of like gay guy,
Sure.
or like repressed closeted or like people know he's gay off stage but doesn't talk about it on stage type of gay comic. There's really not anything in the middle.
There's no just like I'm a guy and then I'm also gay, but it's like a thing that it's like not like a thing. It's not my whole thing.
But I also don't like it when people get like, I hate to say like gay credit and then don't talk about it at all on stage. And I was like, yeah, you may be a gay man, but you're a straight comic. You know what I mean?
That
like,
is so funny. You do all say that.
Yeah. And it's like, of course you're getting ahead because you're doing stuff that's more marketable and more profitable.
Yeah.
He's doing straight face.
No, I mean, it is
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
There are comics who are like, oh, I just don't talk about being gay because it's like, doesn't interest me. And it's like, that's bullshit. You do it because it's more money. It's more profitable. People will rep you. People will book you. Club owners won't feel weird because no one gives a fuck what you do off stage. They only care about what you're doing on stage. So if you talk about it and then you don't talk about it in the way, in maybe the right way or a digestible way, then they don't know what to do with you. And the same thing goes with Latino. And that's even more complicated because they don't even know they don't know how complicated like race is in like Latinidad. They don't get that.
So when I see, and so the challenging thing with like Arab Muslim background is when I hear that happening with Latino culture, it's like, we got no fucking chance then, because we're talking about a culture that is literally built like in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Like, it is here. This is a culture that they're super familiar with. People learn Spanish in school.
Yeah.
And even with all of that information, all the Latinos that live here, there's still fucked up, weird, like politics around it and still like unclear about how to represent. With that being said, it's like, it's even a further shot in the Arab world. I've become so into this thing of like, I have to build my own thing. I can't wait for somebody to wait till, my point of view is palatable to them or whatever,
do you feel there's weird gatekeeping around you by other Arabs or by non-Arabs, like people who are in power?
I do feel it's a lot of people who are like, you ever do those NBC stand up for whatever?
Tried.
Bullcrap?
Yeah.
Yeah. We all have.
Yeah.
My feedback that I feel like I always get from them is something to the effect of, could you be more of what we think you should be? Like, it's really not.
Yeah.
Could you do more? Do you like hummus? Talk a little bit about rip a few olive oil type references, maybe. It's a lot of like, And look, you know what? I know some Arab guys who are like, yo, my mom is like the best falafel. And I'm like, if you can do that,
The best falafel.
my mom is the best falafel.
My mom's a falafel.
My mom's falafel is really, it's a sitcom in the making,
my
if I've ever heard one. Dude, if you can do it, I go, hey, if you can do it and you don't feel sick to your stomach, God bless you. I feel sick to my stomach when I like goof around on shit like that. Like, I have so many thoughts.
You have there's more depth to being you, but even to this, to your identity, there's more depth to the identity anyways,
I feel very fortunate. In the last few years, I've been connecting with a lot of Arabs and I've been connecting with a lot of people online who are finding and really sort of resonating with the idea that I think the imperfections of Middle Eastern people are hilarious. I think that culture is rich and beautiful, but it's not beautiful for the same reason a lot of the West is. It's only beautiful because it's funny to me when I'm like, you think like you don't understand toxic masculinity. You don't even get it.
We haven't. You don't know her, honey, until you.
Like when people talk to me about the mask, I'm like, you don't fucking get it, man. You're talking about weddings where women can't dance and just like it's all this honor fucking bullshit of like, I'll kill my daughters if I find out they have sex. Like, you don't fucking get it. But that to me is like sort of weirdly this thing in the Middle East that I think is funny and interesting. It's not a good idea though.
Yeah.
It's what makes it funny. It's not a good idea.
Is that the set that you auditioned for NBC Diversity?
I did bring up I remember the last one I did for them. I was like, my mom was talking about killing Trump and shit. Like, I just don't give a fuck. I just don't fucking care.
I love it so much.
I did also have an AGT audition recently that I made the room laugh, but I think I know I'm not going to get it because I did talk about my Chola sister stabbing people. And then in hindsight, I was like, that's not going to make it on TV.
You think so?
You know what
I
I
think
mean?
that's
Which
On America's Got Talent.
yeah, because I thought
the problem,
No,
yeah.
because I thought, oh, it's no sex stuff, so it's clean. It was full on violence, and I was like,
So they're like, please be dirty. This is insane. You're talking about someone stabbing somebody.
yeah, I thought that's clean because you can put violence in movies and it's PG. You
Yeah.
know,
It's a great point.
Yeah.
It's a great point. You can't. It's weird that you can't see like a nipple on a billboard, but if it is like those weird America Horror Story fucking like
Oh, yeah.
Blooding
guy,
faces, yeah.
Like
bloody
spikes
face,
coming out of your
spikes.
eye.
Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
like, why? Why
Yeah.
is that one okay?
yeah.
It's so true. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank
you.
This was
I always,
so much fun.
I
Yes.
always love hanging out with you.
Oh, absolutely. Back at you.
Very funny comedian.
You're in the coven.
Go see him live. Go watch his stuff on YouTube.
Where
Follow
can-
him. What's your socials?
Yeah.
Where can we find you?
You can find me at Twitter and Instagram at Ramsbad, RamseyBadawi.com. You can email me at ramseybadawi.com. And please subscribe to my podcast, Worst Hour of the Week. It is a weekly current events-based podcast. And it's a lot of stuff about ISIS and it's really it's poorly prepared for, but it's fun. You should listen.
Awesome.
Thank you,
Thank you
Ramsey.
so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Living glam, living rock, living with Jonathan and Katy.